All right, so with that, we are going to get started with the main part of our webinar today about how to make outreach more effective. So our first presenter is Brooke Linko with NeighborWorks. She is the senior manager on NeighborWorks Homeownership and Lending team. Brooke has been at NeighborWorks for more than 10 years, helping to advance their housing counseling and financial capability work. She provides training and technical and grant assistance to NeighborWorks network organizations and can be found traveling around the country to NeighborWorks training institutes. So NeighborWorks recently published a paper on doing and creating an outreach plan. And it's a really great document, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. I will be placing the link to that document in the chat so that you can have a look at it, but Brooke's going to take a little bit of time to kind of tell us about what they found and learned. And go ahead, Brooke, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, NHRC, for having me. We are very excited to share this guide and resource with all of you. So just wanted to give you an overview of sort of what this resource is and explain a little bit of the thinking behind why we did it. First, just the caveat, we definitely understand and have heard that, doing outreach to communities is, as Bruce alluded earlier, a very challenging part of the work. Housing counselors already have very full plates. And this can be complicated and challenging. And yet at NeighborWorks, we've seen again and again how critical outreach is to engaging people in your programs long enough to really achieve outcomes and work towards goals like homeownership. We feel it's really critical to be strategic and intentional in your outreach work, especially in communities of color. These communities have often faced systemic inequities and barriers to wealth building. And working towards financial goals like homeownership, there can be a lack of trust, which is usually a difficult thing. And navigating and building trusted relationships can be a critical part of engaging these communities. So in this work, knowing this is a challenge, we wanted to come up with a resource and a guide to help organizations get their arms around how to approach this outreach work and provide some tools and resources to really help them get going. So we developed a guide. It's called Cultural, Relevant, and Effective Proven Practices for Successful Outreach to Communities of Color. And it's a roadmap for developing an outreach plan, which I'll get into a little bit later. It talks about developing key messaging to different audiences, creating the outreach plan, helping to analyze your outreach results. And Ellie just put the link in the chat. It's free on our website for anybody to go download and use. And so before we dive into the guide, I wanted to give a little background of our philosophy of how we approach this. And one of the main things that we considered in doing this is that no community is a monolith. There is diversity within diversity. And how do we help people develop flexible and adaptable approaches to approaching a variety of different communities? And so the more specific we are about serving specific audiences, the more specific and nuanced we can be in terms of developing strategies and messaging to these audiences. And this guide supports taking tailored approaches to your outreach work. A little example of that is, I was thinking, if you take the Latino or Latinx community and you compare it with African American or the Black community, there are a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. It's like a Venn diagram. Thinking of some similarities, they are both communities that really want to leave a legacy for the next generation. Many people in these communities are family oriented. There is pride in cultural history. Both communities have experienced systemic trauma and inequities, but differently. I think those show up in different ways. And building safety and trust is really critical parts of, I think, of building relationships in some of these communities. And some differences are, looking at this in the Latino or Latinx community, there are issues of documentation status, sending remittances to family members in other countries, language navigation, immigration status, like first generation or second generation, which all will influence the ways that you engage these communities. And in Black and African American communities, there may be higher debt issues. That's statistically been shown out. Many women in communities, statistics have shown, are part of what is a sandwich generation, where they are caring for young children and elders at the same time. And so obviously these are not exhaustive pictures of these communities, but it's ways to sort of figure out how you can engage in the same way, but also recognize and highlight critical, important differences in these communities that will factor into your engagement and outreach. Next slide, please. So this is a quote that we wanted to offer. In order to work effectively in a culturally and ethnically diverse community, a community builder needs to first understand how each racial and ethnic group in that community is organized in order to support its members. So really, again, knowing your audience and knowing what they care about, what motivates them, what their lives are like is just so critical. And this guide does help with tools to really sort of peel that back and understand your audience. So understanding who you're serving in your community. You know, you may have a large Black community, but within that, is it Black American? Is it Haitian? What are the different ways that people are sort of organizing and wanting to engage with you within those communities? How do you reach them? And how do you make sure your message is resonating? I think, you know, a lot about how to reach. There's ways that people I've seen. I was working with an organization in Boston, and they were setting up financial capability programming, but they were doing it during the day, during the week, and nobody was showing up. And so I'm sure you've all sort of seen this in your communities. They got to know their audience more and understood that that time was not working for people. People were working in the evenings and didn't have time. And so they moved it to evening classes and had a lot more success. So it's part of understanding your audience, making sure that you are being strategic in your programming. And you know, this is critical because many organizations have limited resources, limited staff time to do this. And so we really want to make sure that you have a very rich return on those efforts. Next slide, please. So a little background in how we developed the guide. We used a lot of focus groups and deep dive meetings with NeighborWorks network organizations. You know, we definitely emphasize the importance of reaching out to your audience, no matter who your audience is, and having flexible and adaptable skills to meet them. So last fall, when we assembled a group of NeighborWorks network organizations, they were all serving a variety of different audiences and a variety of different types of communities, urban, rural, different geographic areas in the country. And we did multiple focus groups and lots of in-person meetings and did a deep, deep dive of what is working in outreach, and perhaps sometimes more importantly in these conversations, what was not working. That is often a question I think that really yields important information when we see we tried something, but people didn't show up. Why was that? What didn't resonate? What didn't work? So we learned a lot from these conversations. They really formed the basis of this guide, which gave us an approach, templates that we want to offer you, but also best practices and tools based on the experience of these organizations. Next slide, please. So I just want to underline 3 key points that really wove through the conversations we had, and I think are underscored in the guide. And one is the importance of intentionality. And this can sound maybe a little cliched or obvious, but really it's so important for organizations' efforts to be successful. They need to be thoughtful, they need to be strategic. And in practice, this looks like things like understanding who they wanted to reach, making sure that you have staff that is connected to the culture and the language so people can feel reflected in the people that they're working with, making sure that outreach was connected to communities and that it didn't offend. There can be unintentional ways that you can sometimes disconnect from a community. And we were surprised, some of the examples, that sometimes colors were inappropriate, certain words in different languages were inappropriate or offensive. Certain symbols of patriotism did not resonate well with other communities in ways that they had in earlier focus groups that we've done maybe like 6-7 years ago. So that was interesting. Certain community partners, maybe you didn't want to highlight. So looking at things like that. Another point is making sure there is a plan. So the resource guide provides a template for a plan. There's an action plan in there, and you can dig in and see it. So this is helpful for getting your arms around how to approach the work. Do you want to do an Instagram account or social media? Is it a community letter? Are you going out to community meetings? What are the ways that make sense for you and your community? And what's the best way to use your limited resources and time? Finally, making sure there's a connection. So someone's staff, making sure again that they're reflective of the community, that they have the same background, that they can speak the same language. In some cases, depending on your services, if you are working with a housing unstable community, was the person, maybe you have somebody on staff who is formerly unhoused. Things like this can really help to resonate and connect. Oh, finally, also looking at your website, making sure you have different languages and images of diverse people and cultures. And these are resources we have in the guide to go get some of these images for free. Next slide, please. So here it is, the guide. This is the front cover. And again, we provide the key learnings and the takeaways from all the organizations that we worked with throughout our network. There's a robust resource guide to help approach and implement and assess your outreach plan. And tools and resources, we felt like that was critical. We wanted to give you a roadmap for how to sort of go about approaching it, but then what are the tools and resources to implement key parts of your strategy? So for example, if you decide that creating a radio ad is something that you want to do to raise awareness of your programs, we have some resources in the guide, some ways that we've seen that done successfully. We have places where you can get free images of people of color. So if you're doing some website updating or reaching out virtually on social media, there's some resources there. So we ask you to please take time to review the guide, use it, use the resources. We worked very hard and really want this to be utilized and have it be an asset for those people that are working on this. And again, it is free and accessible on our website. So make sure you check out that link that Ellie sent. And then next slide, please. And then finally, if you have any questions, here's my contact information. I'm happy to follow up. And if you have any questions about the guide or anything else, we have some NeighborWorks courses at our training institutes that deal with outreach and engagement, and our coaching work really has a lot to do with that as well. And that, I think, is it. I think I have one more slide. It says thank you. So thank you all for joining me. Again, please use the resource and feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Brooke. I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't taken a look at this guide, you really do need to take a look at it. It's really useful and helpful. Again, the link is in the chat. If you have any questions, just want to remind everybody, put it in the Q&A box, not in the comments. I do want to say, one person is already saying, I'm already highlighting some key points in the guide. So, all right. So with that, we're going to move on from Brooke, and we're going to hear from Terry Carr, who is the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Housing Counseling. I think a lot of you know Terry. She's been around for quite a while. She's worked on housing policy issues for a long time, and she began her career at the Federal Reserve. She worked at the Senate, at Ginnie Mae, and FHA. And she feels like in housing counseling, she is finally where she belongs, working with a program that is focused on directly helping consumers. And we sure are glad that she's here. So Terry, go ahead, please take it away.
Thank you. All right, so let me just make one correction. I'm the Acting Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary. I want to make that clear. David Berenbaum is still here, and we are very glad of it. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Some of you have, I'm sure, seen a lot of this presentation before, so some of it I may speed through a little bit. We in housing have launched a campaign in the Office of Housing Counseling called Let's Make Home the Goal. Next slide, and it is our attempt, we launched on June 1st, to raise the visibility and awareness of housing counseling. We think housing counseling is important, it makes a difference, and so we wanted to position housing counselors as a go-to resource. We want to reach diverse consumers to generate awareness of the benefits of pre-purchase counseling especially. We wanted to celebrate National Homeownership Month and also advance racial equity through homeownership. So those are our goals for this campaign. Next. And so, in general, I just wanted to talk a little bit about why we think the campaign and marketing itself is important. We think that we can increase the public's perception that housing counseling makes a difference. We have a valuable service and just not enough people know about it. We think we can reach consumers who may be unaware of the benefits. There are a whole lot of folks, we saw this with COVID, we saw people who hadn't been buying starting to buy. And when they become aware of resources like down payment assistance, we think we will see more of that. We want to raise the profile of housing counseling to enhance your ability to attract additional resources. So when you're perceived in your community and in your area as somebody who makes a difference in people's lives, and I think it makes it easier for people to understand your value. And we think that value should be understood by all stakeholders. So we're talking not just lenders and realtors, who I think over the last few years have become much more aware and supportive of housing counseling, but also employers and policymakers. Next. So what have we done? Thus far, we have gotten reached about 1 million unique users, and this is what's happening. We're running Facebook, we're running ads on Facebook, Google, Instagram, and Snapchat. And so we've gotten from those 1 million users about 6,000 clicks through to our website. That's a website that directs people to find a housing counselor. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the reach of the campaign right off the bat. And that's from advertising from June 1st through June 10th. Next. What else have we done? We held an Ask Me Anything online Reddit interview. It's a crowdsourced interview where they have a forum call for homeownership. You go into the forum, you open up a line and offer to answer questions. And in that forum, we did that on June 6th. We got 10,000 page views in 1 hour with David just being open to answering questions. We had 40,000 page views by the end of the day. So that just shows us there's a real hunger for information about home ownership. Next. So those are a couple of our quick wins. And so how do we get to the place where with these couple of events and with our advertising, we were able to have such an extraordinary reach? We already outpaced what we anticipated for media impressions with the 3.2 million. So I want to talk a little bit about the research we did to develop the campaign and the tagline, "Let's make home the goal." Next. So the first thing we did is we did a scan of what's happening on the internet. We went and we looked at websites. We Googled home buying, first-time home buyer, looking for a home, want to buy a home, and what did we find? We find that when you Google those terms, what you get, not much about housing counseling. You do get NerdWallet and Investopedia. You get for-profit websites. And in these websites, they're talking about buying a house as sort of part of your personal finance. What else do you find? You find that primarily the advertising on these websites is from lenders. And the next thing you find is that the websites are very modern, clean. They use a lot of graphics and bright colors. Videos and lists are the way they're communicating with people. Next. We also did some research with interviews, and I'm not sure that I feel like a lot of this information is familiar to us in the industries, but we did some in-depth interviews and we found that there's actually awareness of resources and programs for first-time homebuyers. So people sort of know they're out there. What they don't know is if the programs apply to them and if they can use them. And so there's an interest in knowing more about the programs. And there's also, I guess, a keen interest in having a step-by-step process that they can use to purchase a home, right? So from pre-qualification to purchasing the home to understanding how it benefits them on their tax returns, that's what folks are looking for. We think that their perceptions about housing counseling are, they want more information about whether they're eligible and whether it really benefits them before they participate. They want that information up front. They want to know, they expect to get the information from nonprofits and government agencies, and they pretty much trust them. And then they want to learn about housing counseling through research and or from professionals. So we're kind of pursuing these questions to help us understand what are the best ways to communicate with people who are looking to buy a home. And then the perceptions are about HUD, or that they didn't really know HUD had anything to do with mortgages. They think HUD approved is probably a value add. And then just some of the specific things they said, had no idea that HUD dealt with first-time home buying. Not having all of the information makes me want to take a step back or put on the brakes. So that again speaks to that sense of overwhelm that people who first-time home buyers are feeling when they go to search for a home. Next. So what are we doing with these insights that we have? How is this going to shape our strategy? If the for-profit websites discuss home buying alongside personal finance, then we want consumers to see housing counseling and housing counselors as an essential item in their personal finance toolkit. If the terms buying for your first home or buying a house for the first time or first-time home buyer turn up for-profit websites, we want to change our website, optimize it in terms of SEO so that it'll rank higher and people are more likely to get some information about housing counseling when they search for those terms. And if those effective for-profit websites are clean and modern and have the right colors, we want to adopt that style for the things that we do as well. Next. We also did some research to identify our target areas. Now, given our goals of wanting to reach those communities that have been historically disadvantaged with respect to wealth building and home ownership, we took a look at some of the indexes. We looked at the Freddie Mac Mortgage Readiness Index. We looked at the NAHB Housing Opportunity Index. We also looked at the Housing Opportunity Indexes for the Black Realtors Association and for the Hispanic Realtors Association. Took a look at population diversity and age. And we had to narrow down where we were doing this just because we were working within a budget. Next. And so the cities we decided on are Yuma, Arizona, Odessa, Texas, Houston, Albuquerque, Memphis, New Orleans, Virginia Beach, Baltimore, Richmond, Tuscaloosa, Rockford, Indianapolis, Kansas, Elkhart, and St. Louis. The vast majority of these cities are on either the NAREB or the NAREB Housing Opportunity Index, and they also rank pretty well on the Home Builders Index. Next. And that's just a map of the city so you can see where they're located. You can also see that we did not get as far west or as far north as we would like. To some extent, that was a function of minority populations and the cost of housing. This is the first year of a 4-year effort, and so we do anticipate being able to reach some other areas over the next 4 years. Next. And this is just information you are probably well aware of. We have a homeownership gap. All of our minority groups are behind the national homeownership rates. The African Americans are the homeownership rate for Black Americans, or the gap between Black and white Americans is 26%. The Black between Hispanic and white Americans is 22%. I won't go through all the numbers, but we also know that homeownership is particularly important in wealth building in this country. And so the gap, makes a difference. Next. We also looked at the age. So who are we targeting? And we wanted to have some sense of that. You can see here that for white first-time home buyers, the median age is 31. For Black first-time home buyers, it's 37, and it's 33 and 34 respectively for Hispanic and Asian American people. And again, the sooner you get started on buying a home, the sooner you get started on building wealth. And so again, we just wanted to pay attention to the gap, and it also helps us target our market. Next. And mortgage ready. Another thing that you guys are aware of, and is that there are folks out there, particularly in minority groups, who, at least according to Freddie Mac, are ready to buy a home, but they're not buying. So the overall mortgage ready population is 36%. In the non-Hispanic white population, it's about 36 as well. Among Black Americans, it's 22. Among Asian Americans, 61, and 34% for Hispanic. And that just shows that there are people out there who are ready to buy a home, but for some reason are not. And we think this is a group that we as housing counselors ought to be, and the Office of Housing Counseling ought to be talking to. Next. So what do? With the quantitative and qualitative data, we put that all together, and we found that our audience over indexes, and this is media research, they really like sports. They like ESPN, they like NBA, they like the Sportsman's Channel. We found that first-time home buyers are feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So they want support from other people. And so one of the things we think is sort of, even though it's do-it-yourself approach to many things these days, when it comes to buying a home, consumers, they really still want, they want personalized advice, and they want coaching from a real person. They want a teammate by their side throughout the home buying journey. And then they responded favorably to language like, let's do this, first person plural language. So making it sound as if a group, right, a team is going to help them accomplish their goals. Next. We looked at individual words for the campaign. We looked at, and this is what we did in some of the media, some of the individual research, some focus group and IDI research. And we just tested language. What do people respond to? Teamwork, goal setting, coaching, huddle, achieving big dreams, community support. And putting that all together is how we came to next. The tag home, let's make home the goal. So with goal, we kind of reference goal setting. We also reference sports. We also, let's make home the goal. All of us are making it the goal. We also play on that idea of teamwork. Next. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the campaign components. Next. We developed campaign materials. We've got some events we're doing. We did a good bit of paid media, and we're doing some earned media. Next. With respect to materials, these are all available to you. We've done a myth fact sheet, which you've probably seen maybe in another context, which is just some of the biggest myths about buying a home. We have a one-pager that is essentially some of the myths and some information about housing counselors and how they can help you. And the language kind of leverages some of the themes we found compelling in our research. The idea that people want a step-by-step process, the idea that they want a teammate, the idea that the counselor is that teammate, is that person they can have by their side as they go through the journey of making home the goal. Next. We increased our online presence. We have launched Facebook accounts and LinkedIn accounts, and we built a landing page for the campaign. So all of the ads drive people to this landing page, which has got bright colors and clean lines. And very prominent on that page is the link to find a housing counselor in your area, because our goal here is to drive these consumers to your organizations. And hopefully they will reach out to you and take another look at housing counseling. Next. These are just some examples of the ads. These are the different sizes, right? Google display and Facebook ads that we're using. Next. Again, that online impact. So it's those ads and these themes that have led to the 1 million unique users and led to the 6,000 clicks. And again, that's our first 10 days into the campaign. We took a break last week. We're running ads again this week. So by the time it's over, which we'll run into a couple weeks in July, we should have a really good run of impressions and a good sense of what our reach was. And we'll obviously update you then. Oh, and then our click-through rate of 0.19% does exceed that, exceeds that of real estate, which is a pretty hot topic. So at this point, we are comfortable and happy with the click-through rate. Next. I just have this up here. It's the script for our radio ad. So we did run a radio ad in addition to the Facebook ads. And you'll notice it says housing counselors are essential members of your home buying team who can coach you to the finish line if home ownership is your goal. So in that one paragraph, we've done everything we set out to do with this campaign. We positioned you as an essential member of the team, and we've played on the words coaching and finish line and goal to kind of leverage that sports analogy that we know that folks find compelling. Next. We asked our secretary to cut a PSA, and so she has, and you can find this in the toolkit at HUD Exchange, and you can use it. And it's really just a conversation about home ownership and the important role it can play in intergenerational wealth building. And that's going to be running on YouTube in our targeted cities as well. Next. And this is the specifics on the timeline. So we're doing digital and radio again this week. We're doing digital and radio next week. We'll skip July 4th, the holiday week, and then we'll do digital and radio the 2 midweeks of July. And that'll complete the paid media portion of the campaign. Next. Doing some events, looking at events all around the country, events in communities of color, events that our partners are doing, such as NeighborWorks. If you are aware of an event that you think we should be at, please let us know. We, the Office of Housing Counseling, along with Red Carrot, who is the public relations firm that's supporting us in this effort, will attend these events. And basically our role there is just to hand out information that encourages people to make home the goal and look into getting a housing counselor. In our ideal world, and we do have team members working on this, anytime we have a booth somewhere, we would love it if some of the agencies do as well. And so we will certainly be reaching out to you about that. Next. We are planning a federal employee homeownership fair in DC. And so the idea here is that we are going to invite all of the employees and agencies in the DC area to come to HUD and learn about housing counseling. We will also invite housing counselors in this area to have a table there so that people can actually talk to a housing counselor. We hope to make this really interesting and have a couple of panels. We'd like to put together a panel of millennial folks who are either buying the house for the first time or even want to trade up, just to have a really interesting discussion about what it's like to buy a house in the current environment. Next. The Reddit event got such great feedback that we are thinking of doing a couple more of those. And I think our idea is that maybe we would invite some other folks to join David in answering those questions. We also encourage you, now this is something that can be done completely free. And so we would encourage you to do an Ask Me Anything interview. It just seems like there's such a hunger for information that this is the kind of thing that could be a really successful way of increasing interest in housing counseling. Next. So what are our next steps? Next, we are going to engage some influencers and try to continue to boost the message by having some folks do some posts about housing counseling on Instagram. And we're going to do a deeper dive in social media. So we're going to, this next phase of the campaign, we're really going to focus on social media. And we're going to try to do some research to find out where in the internet landscape are the conversations happening about housing counseling, about home ownership, and where's the best place for us to interject housing counseling into that conversation. So that's the next level of research and planning we're doing. Next. We are partnering. We're trying to build out more partnerships. We've been meeting with the FDIC. We're working with the National Credit Union Administration. We have a long list of folks that we want to reach out to in hopes of engaging them and helping us distribute this message about the importance of housing counseling. Next. And then how can you get involved? Next. Well, if you go to the HUD Exchange link, you can find that as part of this campaign, we have a logo that says you're a HUD approved housing counselor. So please feel free to use it on your materials, on your website, in your signatures. We want folks to know who our HUD approved housing counselors are. We worked hard with OGC to make this possible, so we really hope you will take advantage of it. Also, you'll see here that Northwest Housing Partnership has done a LinkedIn post featuring some of our, featuring the Let's Make Home the Gold campaign tagline. And so we would encourage you to do the same. Next. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there are online and print materials, and all of those things are available to you at that HUD Exchange link. Check out our Facebook page, check out our LinkedIn page. We are happy to share those posts. Feel free to repost and use that material, reformat it, use that material in whatever way you would like. And there's also a link to our PSA, and if you want to try to distribute that, if you want to play that PSA at the beginning of a webinar, or at the beginning of a teaching session, maybe you're offering homeownership education classes, and you'd like to use that PSA at the beginning of it to make people aware of the Secretary's interest in promoting homeownership. Next. And then we're going to have some events. As I said, I mentioned some events. We will have a full list of events on our website. We did a house party with HUD. HUD did a house party as part of its Innovation on the Mall event. They branded that house party, but Let's Make Home the Goal. Housing counselors were prominently featured throughout the event. And it looks like HUD, that the event was so successful that we may do a series of regional house parties. And I would just say that there was at least 2 or 3 hours of that house party session that was devoted to various aspects of housing counseling in ways that housing counselors can help, and also to testimonials from folks who had used housing counseling to purchase a home. Next. That's it. Thank you.
Well, that was a lot, and that was really great. Thanks so much, Terry. I hope that people are watching the chat. There was a lot of links that are posted into the chat, so make sure you check those out. Links for the toolkit, for the logos, for the Facebook page. We really hope that you're gonna use those logos about that are, verifying that you're a HUD approved organization. We're excited to see that and hope everybody starts taking that on. And with that, we're going to move to our next presenter. We wanted to give everybody a little bit of more detail, particularly around reaching out to Hispanic and Latinx communities. And Walkiria Poole, president and founder of Centro de Apoyo Familiar, has a lot of experience and knowledge there. And she is so willing to share it with us. We're really happy about it. Her professional career includes over 15 years in community development and the housing service industry with a focus on affordable housing and asset development. So Walkiria, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you for all the presenters. It's been amazing so far. And I have learned so much. And I want to make sure that at the end of the day, this presentation, that you all getting is going to be useful. And at the same time, you guys will be able to share with other people. I wanted to, we can go, well, Centro de Apoyo Familiar or Center for Assistance to Family. We've been in assistance now since 2006, I'm sorry, since 06, for the last 16 years, actually. And it's been amazing working here in the Washington Metro and also in DC. We can go to the next slide. I want to be mindful with the time. Our mission is to transform community through economic, social, educational empowerment in collaboration with community and faith-based organizations. And I want you to pay attention to that, because the success of the organization has been through the collaboration that we're able to form and to really expand throughout the years. We can go to the next one. We were founded in 06, as I mentioned. In 09, we opened an office here in the state of Maryland. 2016, we extended into Northern Virginia. In 2020 into Washington, DC. Yes, we already had approved counseling agency, and I'm so glad that we can use the logo. I think this is gonna give us more opportunity to really build a brand within the work that the housing counseling agencies, we are doing so great throughout the community. So HUD, thank you so much for allowing us to use the logos. We can go to the next one. Some of the services that we provide include pre-purchase, of course, because we already had approved counseling agency, foreclosure prevention, financial literacy, rental counseling. But I want to focus here because this is about how do we reach out to the community? How do we do great marketing? And some of the programs that we've been at it, we started doing housing, but through the years, we realized that we need to connect some of the programs to better serve and to better reach the community with some of these other programs that we added. We added the food distribution program. Why? Because people always need food. Yes, they need housing, but they need food. So we have been able to either partner with a local food bank or directly provide the food distribution program, where we're able to serve close to 1,000 families every week, providing food in different neighborhoods and educating family and connecting family with housing services. The environmental health education. When we were doing the first-time homebuyer seminar, we realized that, there's more that we can do. There's a lot of indoor pollution. People are going to have their homes, but they want to make sure, or we want to make sure that they live a great environment. So we added into our first-time homebuyer seminar a component or a session that talk about indoor pollution and about environmental health. And through that, we had been able to connect with so many other agencies that are focusing on environmental health issues and environmental justice that have opened the doors so we can connect with the community at a larger way. But then at the same time, it have given us the opportunity to educate those environmental health agencies to also connect about the housing counseling work that we do. The community organizing, we realized that a lot of this work, you have to organize the community. We have been talking about trust through this presentation. We have been talking about building strategies that can be sustainable. But then at the same time, as a nonprofit, I'm always thinking, what way can we do that is creative, that is impactful, but then at the same time is low cost? We don't have many times we don't have a budget to do an amazing marketing and outreach and communication. So we got to be creative. That is the reason why we have to connect with so many other partners that are there in the community that can help us support the work that we do, but also at the same time reach out to the community. And we can go to the next slide, because we'll talk a little bit about some of the best way that we have been able to serve the Latino community or the Hispanic community. Yes, we talk about social media. A lot of the social media, we see many of our clients to be more connected through Facebook. We have been able to do a really good connection through there. Instagram, YouTube, they're all great sources, but we're seeing that majority of them, we're able to get them through Facebook, especially for this work that we do. Radio and TV, we have been able for the last 7 years as an organization, we created a spot in one of the local radio where we have been able to be there every week for about 20 minutes to talk about different issues that are happening in the community. We target about 5 million people here in the Washington metro area. And through that service, we have been able to partner with a lot of our local lenders, realtors who can help us sustain that little space in the radio that we have. But it's so helpful because a lot of the Latino community, almost 98% of the Latino community still connect to radio. So we have made, we have been able to continue these services and making sure that the community hears every week a voice that they can trust, that is being there to educate them and connect them with different resources about the community. Also the word of mouth. We still believe word of mouth is huge. And just give you an example, when we began to do this work here in Maryland, we started to get a lot of family coming all the way from Northern Virginia. They have to go through this bridge, which those of you who live here knows how long it takes. But they will make the wait, 45-minute drive to an hour, just because they heard from another family person that CAF helped them. So because they help them, they want to make sure that the same person who helped them, their family, can help them. So word of mouth still continue to be an amazing way to get and attract other people. Community events. We do these community events every week, and I will tell you, if we serve closely to 15,000 families every year. And the way that we're able to do that is through a lot of these events. And when we talk about 15,000, it's literally we able to touch and talk to people and educate them and connect them. And through a lot of these events that we do now, you might say, how do you do it? We partner. We use partnership. So a lot of these local community food banks are an amazing way for you to go and say, from now on, I would like to be once a month here in your event and be able to present or set up a table where we can have, information about housing counseling, where we can talk about, the different benefit, other services that your agency is able to provide. Now, that is very low cost. It won't cost you anything. And I will share a little bit of the strategies that we use in order to be sustainable, because the community, once they see you, they want to continue to see your face. Don't just show up for some events, be consistent. And so for that, I will share some of the strategy that we have used in order to make it happen. Again, collaboration with the schools, with the small businesses, but faith-based organizations. This is the way that we do it. CAF, and we can go to the next slide. We have been able to put together a network of over 400 churches or faith-based organizations that we work with. And through these connections, we have been able to connect with the community. Again, it's about the trust. It's about the trust. We want to make sure that once the information goes out, goes through people who they know that they can trust, people that look like them, that speak like them, and it can be represented through many of different issues that we have. This is a way that has been extremely successful for CAP. And when I mentioned to you, how can it be sustainable? How can it work? You need to ensure that you build a good partnership, at least with one or two faith-based organizations, because a lot of these leaders, they speak to other faith-based leaders. They speak faith-based leader to faith-based leaders. Pastors speak to other pastors. So we train other pastors to help us recruit others so they can be part of this and they can share their experience and they can give that peace of mind to the rest of the other leaders to allow us to come in and to serve the community. Why? Because unfortunately, a lot of time we've seen happening that other people that might look like us, might look like them, come in and they might use their trust or misuse their trust. So we want to make sure that we build that trust. And once it's built, you use that connection to recruit and to build other to build that network and that connection. Now, how can it be sustainable again? How can we do it from month to month? We'll go to the next slide. This is how we have done it in CAP. We use the model, which is the promotora model. And many of you know the community health, the community workers. That is a concept that is very well known out there. We use it and we train trainers so they can be those ones who many times in those events can be representing you. Maybe you don't have the capacity as an organization to be in all these events happening through the community, but if you have ambassadors, people who can come in and represent and have the tables and have the information and then have them connect them to you for any specific question, that will give you the opportunity to build a presence in the community, build trust. People want to start seeing your name. People want to start seeing your faces. They want to make sure that it's not just happening once in a while, but it's happening constantly. Now, during the summertime, it's an amazing time for you to be out there. And now, how can you replicate yourself? Make sure that you can select those promoters. In our case, we work with the faith-based organizations. They select one of their leaders that they can be trained by CAP. Many times we're able to provide a stipend. Sometimes we can, but sometimes we do. And they're able to support a lot of the work that we do in many of those events. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide? So just to end, I want to make sure that, I kind of summarize that in addition to the social media, in addition to the building partnership with the local faith-based organizations, as I said, the local food banks, those are an amazing opportunity. Also connect with local coalitions. It doesn't matter what it is that they work, but connect with them because they will connect you with the community. Also with the local task forces, with the local Hispanic Affairs Commissions, through the governors. I'm the president of the Hispanic Affairs for the state of Maryland. And one of the things that I do is that I make sure that anything that it can be beneficial for the Hispanic community, we get it through that source. Make sure that you also connect with other coalitions, as I said. And for many of our community, sometimes people will think, I will send an email. The Hispanic community is not so well reached through emails. It's better reached by text messaging, by social media, by radio. We have different categories, but we make sure that if you really want to serve and, and target the people that we want to target and the community that are the underserved, use the radio, use text messaging, make sure that you connect with the local faith-based organizations and also with the local committees and commissions that you have so that we can have a greater impact. And we have, at the end of the day, be creative. And at the same time, because we are a nonprofit, to be low cost. And trust me, it will be successful, and you guys will be able to share an amazing outcome as well. So thank you so much for this opportunity. This is my information. I think we can go to the next slide where my email is and also the phone number. Thank you again.
Wonderful. That's really great information, Walkidia. Thank you so much. So there are a few questions, but I am going to take the facilitator's role and ask the first question. So I'm just kind of wondering if any of our panelists can comment on how outreach and marketing can have an impact on funding opportunities. Go ahead, Brooke. I see that you've unmuted, so go ahead.
Excuse me. Well, I do think, I don't have any data around it, but I do definitely think that when you're out there being clear about your programs and being clear about the impact, and our guide has some analysis elements to it as well, that is something that you can show funders and grant proposals, that you are reaching out and targeting certain communities. I know that is something that's very much in the minds of funders, is who you're reaching and who you're serving. And so I think having a clear outreach proposal is a benefit to that.
Thanks. Terry or Walkidia? Terry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've had some feedback too, that combined with good metrics on who you're serving and what those folks are actually accomplishing can be particularly useful when you're looking at lenders, because it can be useful to their CRA process. So.
Great.
Yeah, I will agree as well. And one thing that we always do, and I encourage others to do, is to do your own local need assessment and community assessment, so you know exactly what it is that your community need. And as you connect with funders, opportunities to lenders, realtors, they always like to fulfill a cause that for sure your community is in need. So try to create your own community assessment with your network. If you have any, make sure that you start building up the data.
Great. And somebody just posted in the chat that what worked for them was promoting your funders on LinkedIn. It motivates other funders to consider funding you. Good point. All right, so I'm going to get to the questions. We just have a few. Well, one person asked, can we use the pic of "Let's Make Home the Goal" on a flyer? I think everybody got that's yes, but Terry, go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. We encourage you to.
And there was a link to the toolkit in the chat so that you can actually get in there and get all of those. Are you able to see where the marketing clicks are coming from in certain areas in the US? That's for you, Terry.
I am not, and it really hadn't occurred to me that I might be able to figure out how to do that. So I will take that back to our team and see if we can figure out what the locations that they're coming from. But at this point, I don't have that data.
Okay. And then what are the targeted demographics?
African American, Asian American, and Hispanic American in that median home buying age group. So 30 to 40 ideally. Okay.
Let's see. One person wanted to know if they could use their own brand color in the new HUD approved Housing Counseling Agency logo.
I have to answer no to that. We have provided a wide range of colors, and we also have black and white. So we need you to use one of the colors provided, or the black or the white logo.
Terry, can you talk a little bit about where people can use those flyers, those logos?
Yeah, they can use the logos on your website. You can use it on your materials. You could use it on your business card. Any place you want to make sure people are aware that you are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency.
In your email signature.
Exactly, that too.
Well, that was the end of our questions. I don't know if Bruce, if you have any further questions for our panelists, but those were all of our questions, and thank you so much, everybody.
Well, thank you very much. And I just want to do another plug for using the logo, because this is partly how we identify ourselves as a trusted resource. Actually, let me ask Terry if others have thoughts too about what's being done so that the public is aware of the logo as kind of a good seal, housekeeping seal of approval type thing.
You know, Bruce, I think that's probably, I mean, I think in the campaign, we're trying to sort of position housing counselors as trusted advisors. But the ability to have a logo and use it has only come about in the last few months. So I think we will have to take that back to the team and figure out what we can do. I would think that we should be able to integrate it into some aspect of this campaign.
Yeah,
And I would think that we could probably particularly use it with partners. So maybe we'll start making it a particular part of the pitch we do with lenders and realtors. We're doing some work with NAR and other folks to make sure that they're aware. So we can we'll put together a little plan for that.
yeah, and I think this idea of look for the HUD-approved housing counseling agency logo or badge or stamp, whatever you want to call it, that's useful for popularizing it to the public.
I think that would be very useful. I think in our preliminary conversations about this, it was our impression that for a good portion of the audience, we've got to make them aware of what housing counseling is first before we can sort of say, look for the seal of approval, because we really did find not that much knowledge about housing counseling and what it does. But that's the next step for sure.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. This was terrific. We really appreciate it. And of course, this will be posted as a recording, and you'll be able to access it through our website or through our YouTube channel if you want others on your staff to know about it. And please share with us if you're using the logos. We'd love to see what it looks like on your flyer and on your website and whatever. And maybe we'll put them up on the Facebook page or something as well, or do something with it. But thanks, everybody. It looks like some very nice, warm comments in the chat. So before you leave, take a look at what people are saying. It's very helpful. So just a reminder here about joining NHRC, the National Housing Resource Center. You can always join through our website. We've made it easier, thanks to Ebony's good work. We've made it easier to join with credit card or electronic transfer, or sending us a check, whatever works best for you. We've mentioned at the beginning that there's a pretty deep discount for the CoreLogic Credco credit reports. I know the cost of credit reports has gone up. A lot of agencies are paying $30 and more for a classic three bureau report with three credit scores. And that same report would cost us $20 and some change under our program. If you're paying for it directly, if you're paying through one of the services, there might be a tiny bit more, but this would definitely be a way of saving you money. We have some other discount with Savvy, the online student loan service. And you actually get occasional emails from us about interesting and unusual funding opportunities that you might not have heard about. And some of them can be for a great deal of money. Sometimes there's challenges that I think we should figure out how to get housing counseling more represented in. And hopefully one of you will be a big winner on one of those sometime. The real reason to do it is because you support our work in really trying to both elevate housing counseling and to really deal with affordable housing issues from your constituency's perspective, and do that in Congress and with the administration and with the industry. So please, you can go to our website or just email one of us to get the information about how to renew or become a new member. We'd love to have your support. So with that, we're going to close it out for today. Thanks, everybody. Look for announcements for the next calls coming up. We'll post them on the Leaders and Listserv. And if you're not part of our Leaders in Housing Counseling Listserv, please reach out to us right now and let's get you on the list so you get our notices pretty regularly. There's also lots of good information updates on them. Thanks, everybody. Keep up the good work.